Hey guys, welcome to Phone Arena. This video is all about cameras. Cameras are important in smartphones more than ever before and has gotten better and better over the years. Almost all smartphone manufacturers claim that the newest device takes the best photos. However, they cite different factors such as resolution, low light performance, autofocus, stabilization, and zoom. To help cut through the noise, we've come up with a blind test. This blind test is between 4 smartphones in the mid-range segment with different camera specs. So, the contenders are POCO X3 Pro, iQOO Z3, realme 8 Pro, Nord CE. Before proceeding with the blind test, let's have a quick look at the camera specs of each phone. Let's start with the POCO X3 Pro. On the rear, you have a 48MP primary camera along with an 8MP ultra-wide sensor, a 2MP depth sensor and a 2MP macro sensor. On the front, you have a 20 megapixel camera with an f2.2 aperture. Moving over to the iQOO Z3, you have a 64MP primary camera, an 8MP ultra-wide lens and a 2MP macro sensor. And on the front, you have a 16MP sensor with f2.0 aperture. Moving over to the realme 8 Pro, you have a 108MP primary sensor along with an 8MP ultra-wide lens, a 2MP black and white sensor and a 2MP macro sensor. On the front, you have a 16 megapixel camera with an f2.45 aperture. Finally, on the OnePlus Nord CE, you have a 64MP primary sensor along with an 8MP ultra-wide sensor and a 2MP mono sensor. And on the front, you have a 16 megapixel camera with an f2.45 aperture. Now, let's get started. We tested the phones in different scenarios, locations and subjects to see which one is best. During the blind test, I'm not going to say which one is better, but I'll point out the difference just in case it's not obvious. We used the factory settings of the camera apps and everything was photographed in automatic mode. So get ready and bump up the resolution. A fair warning, the photo you pick might not come from the phone you thought it is. In this image, the POCO X3 Pro has a warmer color tone. The details are sharp and the dynamic range is good. The iQOO Z3 has a cooler color tone. The shadows are darker and the details are not as good as on the X3. The OnePlus Nord CE has a very good real-world color tone. Brighter image with good shadows and contrast, but the details are noisy. The realme 8 Pro has a cooler color tone. The shadows are darker and the details are not as sharp as on the other phones. In this image, the POCO X3 has a warmer color tone. The cloud details are well preserved, but the foreground details are very noisy. On the iQOO Z3, the overall color tone is a lot cooler, however the details are not sharp enough. The image has a smoothened effect over the details. On the OnePlus Nord CE, it has a warmer color tone and the details are very blurry and noisy. The realme 8 Pro has a warmer color tone, the details are also blurry and noisy. In this image, the POCO X3 Pro has a warmer color tone, the details are good but not sharp enough. The shadows are noisy. The iQOO Z3 has a cooler color tone with good details, the shadows are well lit. The overall color tone in the Nord CE is warm but the details are not sharp. The image is noisier in the foreground and in the shadows. The realme 8 Pro has a overall cooler tone with a bright image and very good details. In this image, the POCO X3 Pro has a bit warmer color tone. The buildings have very good details. On the iQOO Z3, the building has good details, but some of the distant objects appear noisy. The LIC nameboard details are not as sharp enough on the OnePlus Nord CE as on the other phones. In the image shot by the realme 8 Pro, it does not have many details like on the other phones. Even in daylight, the images appear noisy at 100% crop. In this image, the POCO X3 Pro has a very good color tone. The shadow and highlights are well preserved. The details on the statue look nice. Cloud details and the statue wall details look smudged on the image shot on the iQOO Z3. The Nord CE has a warmer color tone. The images have darker shadows which are not well lit. The wheel on top of the statue looks blurry. The image from the realme 8 Pro appears brighter, but the details on the statue are not sharp enough. Starting with the POCO X3 Pro, the details on the clouds look good, but the statue appears blurry. The details in the image shot on the iQOO Z3 are washed out. The images shot on the OnePlus Nord CE have darker shadows. The top of the wheel in the statue looks out of focus. In the realme 8 Pro, the image appears brighter. The cloud details are not sharp enough though, but the overall contrast of the image looks appealing. On the POCO X3 Pro, the foreground subject is well lit, but the right hand side of the bottle looks blurry. The background blur is good though. In the iQOO Z3, the label is out of focus on the top. The right side of the bottle appears blurry. The background bokeh is good though. On the image shot on the OnePlus Nord CE, it looks over-sharpened with noise in the background, and the background bokeh is over-sharpened and noisy. The edge detection is pretty good with a good background blur in the realme 8 Pro. Coming to the selfies, the OnePlus Nord CE produces good indoor selfies with good shadows and highlights. The POCO X3 Pro has darkened the face a bit and the background. In terms of color, the iQOO Z3 is a bit saturated than all of them. In the POCO X3 Pro, the left side of the subject's face appears darker. Edge detection is not great on the subject's shoulder, resulting in uneven blur. The subject shot on the iQOO Z3 is well lit. The background details are visible as well. However, the facial details are over smoothened. In the Nord CE, the subject shirt looks completely different and the details are very smoothened. On the Realme 8 Pro, the image looks darker, but the edge detection is pretty good for the most part, except for the small issue on the right side of the subject's head. The Nord CE produces a brighter image with a good white balance, whereas the Realme 8 Pro and iQOO Z3 are too warm and saturated. The POCO X3 Pro though produces the sharpest images. In this round, the Nord CE produces a very good image with accurate color balance and details. The white balance on the X3 Pro, Realme 8 Pro and iQOO Z3 are too warm. It's worth mentioning that on the iQOO Z3, the image is most saturated. So here we are. The POCO X3 Pro's camera performance is very good, be it in daylight or low light. Overall, the X3 Pro was ahead in most of the scenarios compared to the other devices. More megapixels isn't certainly a bad thing, but it's not the only metric with which we should measure the phone's camera capabilities. More than the megapixels, the image sensors, the lens, the processing software do a lot of the work. As you can see from the photos, the POCO X3 Pro is not only a powerful smartphone, but also a stunning camera phone to capture your favorite memories.